Over the line for Monday, January 3rd. Oh, 2nd, actually. Damn.
Come on, man.
Whoa.
It's not moving that fast.
2nd. New year. Time for a couple of new things going on. Today, Over the Line with Tracy, Broussard, myself, and we have Coach Clayton Birmingham from the University of Wisconsin Stout football team, and anxious to get going and talking about D3 football. Coach Birmingham, he plays in a conference with University of Wisconsin Whitewater. That's been probably one of the big game teams for a long time. Good program there, so anxious to ask him a couple of questions about that too. But Tracy, anything you got to say about your Cowboys from Thursday night real quick?
They made that look hard. I mean, I was at the game, and you'd swear that it was a death march when it was over. Because all the Cowboys fans are walking over the bridge from Nissan Stadium, and we're all kind of like, "Yep, that was one." It's like when you pick up a girl from the bar, and she may be on the heavier side. We've been doing the last 4 trips to the bar. That's what we've come home with. So I'm.
Tell me when Dak's going to learn that he can't be turning the ball over.
So the center quarterback exchange, not sure who to blame that on. Hendershot's drop pass, that's on him. Hendershot.
Right.
But throwing in a double coverage, man, I saw that from the club level. I was like, what are you doing? And that pass was a little behind too.
Right.
Even if it was a perfect pass, you're still forcing it. And I think there's some stuff with Dak where he goes through these progressions where he makes the safe throw, good throw, and then every once in a while, I was like, yeah, I'm going to force this one. I'm feeling myself. We don't need that. We don't need you to force that stuff.
I think he watched too much of Brett Favre for growing up, maybe.
I don't know, man. And then the thing is, and here is the lipstick on the pig segment of that game, in my opinion. Yes, you don't want the turnovers. Coach, you know that. You don't want turnovers in the first half.
Yep.
But for some reason, the second half, they can play pretty well. One of two things. As a coach, you probably agree. Don't turn it over. Let's fix that. But the fact that they can overcome that and have strong second halves and win, that's cool. But the next thing is you cannot do that against good teams. You cannot spot a team 2 or 3 turnovers in the first half in the playoffs and think you're going to pull that out. So, man, it's so weird. Cowboys back-to-back 12-4, 12-win seasons. Great. Last time we did that was the mid-'90s. Of course, we went to the Super Bowl then. Great. Awesome. Cool. But I'm still not going into this playoff run looking forward to having to play Tom Brady. And the only way we get out of that is if we somehow win our division and get a bye. And that has to happen. And there's so many weird things, like Dallas needs to play their starters because they need to find a way to play better football. You're playing against a Commanders team. They have nothing to play for. And that's the type team that can ruin some stuff. On the other side, you got Philly. They need to win to get the bye and to win the division. The Giants are already in. They have nothing to play for. So they're probably going to rest their starters. We don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to play. So it's like, yeah, the Cowboys can get in, but there's all these other things that need to happen for them to win the division and get the bye. Here's the other kiss in the pig part. Dallas sucks when they have bye weeks. So we suck when we play in the first round. We suck when we have a bye week. What the hell?
You notice that he's more passionate about the Cowboys than he is his drumming?
Oh, yeah. Because the drumming thing I can kind of control. But what we're looking at as far as the Dallas Cowboys, I'm definitely not drinking the Kool-Aid I haven't all season. I told Jeff this. I will be excited when we've won a couple playoff games and we're in the NFC Championship.
That's the Green Bay Packers.
And then that's what we have to look forward to. The Cowboy killer, Aaron Rodgers. They're playing great ball right now. Everyone said they were done 4 weeks ago. And here comes Aaron Rodgers with that sly smile, smoking Minnesota. And another thing, everyone was saying Dallas needed to beat good teams. And when they beat Minnesota, you're like, yeah, that's a solid win. Minnesota is not that good.
No, defensively, they're showing not really good at all. So,
and Kirk Cousins does not like that.
No.
Kirk Cousins is not the dude.
No, he's upset about everything right now. But Coach, I want to talk to you a little bit about the Division III process. Finish your, what is this? I'm trying to think now off the top of my head. 13?
Here at Stout?
Yeah.
16 all total, 13 as head coach.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So 13 is the head coach.
Yeah.
And this year, 5-5, I think it was when I looked it up. Had some really good games. I actually attended one game. You didn't know this.
Where were you?
I actually showed up, and I was going to go over and bother you, but then I thought, no, you're working. I'm not going to do that. I wanted to come out. I haven't been out, and I wanted to come out. And so I went to the Stevens Point game, and what a game it was in October. Unbelievable. You guys were scoring every time I turned around. It was like, oh, there they scored again. And had a good game there. And talk a little bit about your season. And then I want to get into the recruiting process, because Tracy and I always talk about the recruiting and what a D3 school has to go through to get the recruits and how much traveling and all that kind of stuff. But talk a little bit about your year. Now, Coach is also a graduate of Southern Door High School, the high school that I attended, Al Johnson, Ben Johnson.
High school of legends.
Bob Adamoff, trying to think of all the D1 guys that played. And Coach is graduated from there, went to Stevens Point, started over there as a football player, and also one of the guys that I had a little bit of coaching experience with too, back when he was 15 years old. So,
and regardless of how poor a coaching job you did, he did manage to do things well for himself, in spite of your coaching.
I was really a mess until I met Coach. You kind of straightened me out. Yeah, I was.
Oh my God!
I was going spiraling downhill fast, and someone got a hold of me, and look where I am now.
Oh man, I cannot believe Jeff was able to do that.
I told him all the first day, don't listen to a word I say. You'll be great if you just stay your course. Don't even listen to me. Yeah. If you know the game, then I don't need to teach you anything. So just stay the course.
Right.
Wow.
And it worked out. They ended up going on and playing really well that year when they were 15. So. But yeah, let's I talk a little bit about the year. Like I said, it was 5-5, but you had some really good games in that year. I mean, I was following along, like I said, just about every week, and there were some really good games. And the teams that maybe were, if ranked or ahead of you, you guys actually played really tough.
Yeah, I thought we had a good year. I mean, it was 5-5 doesn't really reflect much, obviously. Coaches talk there, right? But
right.
We lost our last game by a point. It was a tie game with 11 seconds left, and my not so smart guys decided we're on the road. Don't go in overtime on the road. Let's go for 2 and win this damn thing. Get the hell out of here. And it was just unfortunate we didn't make the play in the 2-point conversion, and we went home with a loss. But we lost another game, down in Oshkosh by 5 points, and Call it like it is. Our quarterback had the ball over the line, and we have no instant replay in Division III football, and we get snubbed and we lose by 5. So it's we had a solid year. We took a couple of those games there, and we're probably playing in a post game, the bowl game, the Isthmus Bowl.
Right.
But we play a tough conference. It's a fun conference. It's known as the best Division III conference in the nation. Just from top to bottom, it's very solid teams every week in, week out. So we don't have too many of the cupcakes. This year we had a couple teams that were down. They're usually not down, so I suspect those will be back up here now with some coaching changes. So, but it's a fun league. It'll give you gray hair. It's always a goal of mine to come back to the league I played in. I played at Stevens Point. I jumped around for 10 years in Division I, Division II, and I just didn't jive with me, the lifestyle that I had to live to coach that way. And quite frankly, I wanted to settle down and get married and have a family. And that's why I got a 5-year-old and I'm 49 years old. So there you go. So I started a little late, but that prolonged my family time was jumping around so much when I was young. So love it here though. Stouts, Menominee, Wisconsin is a great place to raise a family. Love the university, great leadership here. kind of let me alone, let me do what I want. And it's really Division III is fun because it engulfs the whole kid. I mean, you can really get involved with not only the football side of things, but academics, the personal. I mean, you're it, right? I mean, it's kind of just a step up from the high school where they have to manage the whole student athlete. We don't have a support staff for every little thing like an academic support staff, player personnel. We don't have it. It's us. So that's what makes it fun, though.
Talk a little bit about that climb to, like you said, you traveled around and there was a part, I don't remember what year it was, but I remember talking to you, I think before you left, you actually went over out of the country to coach.
Yep.
And where was that again?
When I first started, I went to Stockholm, Sweden.
Okay.
And was a head coach over there for a Swedish team in Stockholm. So that was fun. And then fast forward a few years, and when I was on a couple of USA national teams, the first ever one that they finally invited us to their World Cup. We went to Kawasaki, Japan, and played there. So I was a linebacker coach in that. And then there was a Division III one in Mexico, a USA national team, which was pretty fun too. So in Chihuahua, Mexico. So kind of bounced around all over the place, and like the European thing and the out of the country thing. It was kind of cool.
Talk about that conference you had mentioned and everything. Whitewater, University of Wisconsin Whitewater's in that conference, and they've been a monster program for a long time, haven't they? Yeah,
it is. I mean, they're the most well known just because they've had the most tradition of wins and stuff. But it's a good conference. There's some other teams that are pushing them pretty hard now, and the parity's starting to come a little bit more closer to them. Let's face it, just like NFL or mostly college Division I, it's an arms race, right? Whitewater was fortunate to have the millions of dollars first to stick into their athletics, and they really reaped the benefits early. Teams now are slowly catching up to them with money and started building the nice things that they had for many years. So it's closing the gap. So you look at these kids, they're coming out. We're recruiting right now, right? And they're young and dumb, and all they look at is, wow, that's a nice. They have a nice field, or they have a nice weight room. They don't look at, the football guys, academics. Someone might rely on that, but it's more of what can you do for me, and what do you got, and I want to feel cool and feel like feel special. And with no scholarships, we don't have nothing to give them financially. So that is their financial, all the facilities and stuff. Wow, look at what you get for this price. You go over that school, they don't have them facilities. The same price, you get this though at this price. So it's hard. I mean, we got to keep up with the Joneses.
How hard is it to run a program and make improvements to a program when you really don't have much of a budget in a way, with it being Division III? Because a lot of people don't know, but there's no money coming in basically from admissions or anything like that, like to games.
Yep.
And so how hard is it to raise funds and build these facilities to bring the kids in?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you have to find the money guy, right? I mean, like Whitewater had the money guy that donated the millions of dollars, one guy. You have to have those big dogs to make it. Otherwise, you're just scratching the surface with a bunch of little people giving, a few thousand here, a few thousand there. Just quite isn't going to add up to what you need to really be successful or really grow it and build what you want to build. But you know what? You work hard. There's a place for everybody. There's a lot of diamonds in the roughs. There's tons of kids out there. So just because we don't have those things doesn't mean we can't win. We got to just cast our net a little further and find the right guys for our niche, which is good here at UW Stout.
So from a recruiting standpoint, you're competing not only with other schools in D3, but you're competing with JUCOs, you're competing with D2, and then possibly one. So do you find that a lot of times your recruits come later in the signing period because they haven't gotten offers from one or two? And how does that affect your process whenever you're trying to evaluate kids? Because you may find a kid, man, this kid's great, but if he has aspirations for D1, you're like, is it realistic? Do you have to kind of set your standards a little lower when you're looking, or do you shoot for the moon from the get-go?
Well, you kind of feel them out. You like it. You watch a kid and you like them, and first thing you do is try to talk to the high school coach, and they kind of tell you where they think he's going to land. And just from on the internet and looking at Twitter is big for college football. recruiting, and you know exactly if you kind of got a shot at this guy. If he's sniffing with D2s, we have a shot at him.
Yeah.
If he's sniffing D1s, we probably don't have a shot at him. You just kind of look at their media and what they're throwing out and how many offers they got. If we can compete with those schools that we think we can compete with, we'll go after them. But there's only so much time in a day, so you don't want to waste a lot of time on the ones that you're not going to get. So again, it's finding the right fit for UW Stout. We have a big niche in certain majors like engineering and construction management. We get guys from coming all over the nation to come to school here because we have pretty good programs in those majors. So we try to hit those ones. Once we see an engineer, we're on them. We're on them pretty heavy. So.
And I guess injuries also play a part, because you could have a kid that's a D1 prospect but may have an injury late in the season, and then that drops them. So I guess those guys are on your radar too. It's unfortunate for the injury, but for them, it's maybe a win-win for both of you. Does that kind of factor into the recruiting process?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so much with injuries. Because then you can rehab them and they'll be back. If it's a good player. But there might be some situations where they go to a school, they just don't, they were told they were going to get this, they don't, the playing time isn't there, they get frustrated, they want to drop down. And now with the transfer portal, that's kind of the thing where it's just free agency for college football, basically. So kids don't like where they are, they throw themselves in the portal and they're a free agent and they start the recruiting process again. So every school is trying to pick up some of those guys, some transfers. In this league, in Division III, your D1 and D2 transfer down, those are difference makers you need to really kind of put you over the edge and make those plays.
Coach, one thing I wanted to touch on also is, and you know this because I'm huge into this, how much does the character of the player, you know that he's a good player when you're recruiting him, of course, but how much does the character come into everything and just the attitude of what you want at the University of Wisconsin Stout? How much, because there's a lot of young guys that are listening that'll end up, getting on this and listen later that maybe be in high school football right now. And I always say that, I've told, even when you were younger, let's play the game, let's respect the game. And that was baseball, of course, but I think that's huge.
Yeah, 100%. Character for us, you look at different staffs is different, right? Some guys will manage differently personnel. Here we deal, with high character guys. And if you're not a high character guy, I have no problem to get you in here and release you. It's Division III, right? We all want to have fun. Players want to have, the coaches want to have fun. We don't need some guy who's a me guy or just a bad character guy kind of screwing up the whole system. So, we try to be a player-led team too. They have their freedom to walk in my office and the captains and upperclassmen to say, hey, this guy's not fitting in, and I'll make that change if that's what they're telling me. I'll listen to them and trust them. But no, it's character is huge. It's you can win games, like the old cliche, you can win some games with some not so good character guys, but you're not going to go all the way with them. So. What you do find is you take some gambles on some kids, where you think because we're coaches, right? We think we can change everybody, and we want that challenge, and that's why you're coaching. So you'll pick up a couple of them that are really good. They got to be really good on the field. They got to have some asset they're bringing. So if they're really good, we'll deal with some stuff to try to mentor them into the right path to where they need to go. But you can't save everybody, and you will give them a chance. But if we can't save them, they don't want to kind of morph to what we're doing. See ya.
I bet with social media and everything, and you mentioned Twitter, that is something that you can definitely find. If you can, there can be some warning signs there too.
No question.
And that's why kids today, they're very involved with the social media aspect, but it takes one bad tweet or one bad something else, and that's it.
Right.
You let that go. So that, I guess you use Twitter and now Instagram and all the other stuff to monitor these kids. And I'm sure that plays a big role in it, right?
Yeah, there's no question. We train our guys what to be said on social media because that's a big avenue for them right now. And they just got to be smart. I don't want to be on Twitter. Trust me, I'm 49 years old, and the last thing I want to do is look at Twitter or Instagram, but it's my job. So,
Yeah.
But no, they just got to be smart, and hopefully we educate them good enough so they don't slip up.
And I think now with the transfer portal and also the NIL deals,
Yeah.
it's almost like you got to start grooming these kids in high school.
Yeah, right.
For when they get out. And,
Yep.
right, wrong, or indifferent about the NIL deal. I mean, those players in D1 and a little bit in D2, though, it's a tough schedule for them to carry. The thing about D3 is the guys that are playing in that level, they still love the game, but they're balancing that with the academics.
Yep.
But in D1, sometimes the academics are kind of on the back burner. The first priority is the athletics. And for whatever major these kids are taking in D1, are they going to school? What are they taking? And then, the whole JUCO, that avenue too, those kids are going there to try to either clean up some issues, get their grades up, or figure out what they want to be. And man, God bless those JUCO coaches. You want to talk about projects, man. They're probably taking on projects all the time.
Yeah, they are. It's different. I know that. So, but
Coach,
how about what the kid wants?
Talk about. I got to ask you this question: being the coach and all that. Wonder if you have a guy that's on social media like Jair Alexander last week, calling out Jefferson from the Vikings and saying that his game was a fluke against the Packers the first time. But not only that, talk a little bit about that, how they're to use social media like that. But then also, what would you do to a kid if he did the gritty after you knocked down the pass? That's what I'd like to know.
Yeah, for one thing, you never want to. You call it the locker room, the bulletin board material. You never want to give a team any bulletin board material. So, our kids are pretty smart. We educate them, from the moment they walk into camp. That's one of our things that we talk about, how to deal with, put out there, even if they're talking to their buddy who plays at a Whitewater. Don't give them anything on our team. And then, in NFL and Division I, they can do a little bit more showboating. Division III, they've cracked down on it quite a bit. So you won't be able to get away with doing the gritty without getting a 15-yarder. So it's it was pretty comical. And as soon as he did the gritty, I was like, ooh, you're setting yourself up, man.
Exactly.
You're putting it all out there.
So what did they? I know that you watched the game and that, but so what did they do to shut down Jefferson? Because you shut him down one pass for 15 yards, that shut them down. Kind of like Philadelphia did though against them.
Well,
So
I can't remember what interview I was talking or listening to, but they were interviewing maybe Rodgers, and they were saying, "Well, don't fool yourself. It was double coverage on them. They weren't just covering with one guy. So that's what you got to do. You got to take away their best guy and let the other guys beat you. And if they do, oh well. But that was their game plan. That was a good one.
Because they definitely used their safeties on both sides every time he lined up. So it wasn't Jair on him. I mean, he was following him. I liked the one thing that he did though was that where he kind of went up and jammed him a couple of times, and that was I really liked him doing that.
Yeah, if you got over the top help, they're playing some type of a trap or cover two with it over the top of them. It gives them some freedom to mix it up, and that's just something you got to do with them. I think is you can't just sit in one defense. You got to be pretty versatile. Kind of. I'm not a big Cousins fan either, Tracy. So there you go.
Well, and then we all know when you have an alpha receiver like Jefferson, and I think that's in a receiver's DNA to be that. And when they first of all had a big game the first time, and then you got a cornerback chirping about it being a fluke, and then you go into the game and you're not getting the catches, you're not getting the targets for whatever reason, if they're doubling you or whatever, then you start to really see the character of a guy.
Yeah.
Because I could kind of tell when Jefferson took his helmet off and almost whacked the ref.
Yeah.
As a defensive player, I'd be like, we smell blood in the water. We already have him aggravated. We just got to keep doing what we're doing. Yeah. And that was the thing that I saw in that game. The biggest thing that the Vikings did not do was capitalize on big plays. You cannot win a game, getting a turnover, blocking the punt, getting the ball at the 3, and getting 3 points.
Yeah.
It's like, it goes back to the Dallas game against San Francisco last year. We had no points on 2 drives in the first quarter. You can't play like that. And when the other team's scoring. So I knew that game as far as the Packers and Vikings game, momentum had swung. And this is what's scary about the Packers going forward. They took some blows, all right? And they took them, and they didn't back down.
Yeah.
And then you got Aaron Rodgers. And as I'm watching this game, like, here we go again. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. You want to be playing your best ball in December with something to play for. And I was watching the momentum of that game, and I'm, like I said, I wasn't high on the Vikings. And we see a lot of flaws in who the Vikings are. And I don't think they can sustain, even in the playoffs.
Yeah, you look at body language, what you're talking about there, basically, right? That's the hardest part of coaching is when you're down, A, don't show the body language that you're defeated, and B, how can you flip that momentum? I thought what was interesting about last night's game was the first 2 scores were special teams, scores. How often do you see that? I mean, it's crazy. So,
and you want to talk momentum. You got 14 points off of special teams.
Yep.
That gives your offense a chance to get flowing and get rolling.
Yeah.
And watching that game, and I mean, a huge thing that I noticed, and it was the Packers' day, the field goal. Mason Crosby going into halftime. The football gods were with the Packers, and I knew at halftime this game is over. It's going to be ugly, and I liked seeing that. Unfortunately, it's I'm watching because I enjoy watching good football, but then I'm thinking, oh my goodness, looking at the way the playoffs could shake out, you don't want to play a Packers team right now. Of course, you know what? Yeah, you gotta win. You don't look ahead, Coach. I'm sure you talk about this all the time. You don't look ahead. The next thing is to beat the Lions. But then I'm thinking they can beat the Lions. I mean, the Lions are playing good football too, but who am I going to trust more? As poorly as the Packers have played earlier in the season and how up and down the Lions have played, their season has kind of been the same. I still trust Aaron Rodgers more.
Yeah. The thing with the Packers is they start their playoffs right now.
Yeah.
They're starting right now. So,
Talk a little bit. I'm going to get back to your program, but I want to hear your opinion because you know my opinion because you're friends with me on Facebook. But where do you put somebody
Jeff,
like?
You have an opinion? What?
where do you put somebody like Aaron Rodgers? And why do you think, as a coach of a program, that so many people hate him just because of maybe his beliefs, maybe because he looks different? Why do you feel like they judge him, and where do you put him as a quarterback all time?
I think he's a really good quarterback. I guess the only thing I don't like seeing from Rodgers is I don't think he's coachable like he should be. I think I see him. It seems like he's smirking sometimes at LaFleur. He calls the coach by the first name in press conferences. I mean, the respect level isn't theirs all the time, and that's why I don't think he's going to be a great one. He is great, right? I mean, but I mean that's why I don't think people like him. I should say no matter how big your ego is, I mean, you still got to treat people with respect, and how good you are doesn't matter. That's the only thing. Other than that, I think he's a great quarterback and mechanic wise and what he can do on the field. I just wish off the field he would just show a little bit more respect to kids that are watching him. Everybody's watching him, right?
Right.
And just be coachable. It's not that hard. So
I think all that started with McCarthy. He didn't really vibe with him.
No.
And then you get a coach in there that's not that much older than you.
Right.
And so that's a tough thing. And we've seen McCarthy, and I see what he does in Dallas, and we can debate on whose Super Bowl that was. Was that McCarthy's or was that Aaron Rodgers' Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Who we'll find out at some point. We will. But with Aaron and Matt LaFleur, it was a rocky start. And then on top of that, the Jordan Love thing. And so I think Aaron is just doing his thing. But I do get what you're saying about the respect factor because it has to be there. And kids are probably seeing it. I go back to when I was coaching basketball for 5 and 6 year old kids. Steph Curry was the thing, shooting threes. These little kids are trying to shoot threes. I'm like, you can't even make a layup, but you're shooting threes. And so what they see, it gets in their head. And as a coach, you got to be like, oh, man, all these kids, everything that they do is being justified by these big stars.
Yeah.
But what they don't see is the coach-player relationship, which is what these kids are going to have to deal with, whatever level, if they aspire to be pros. Middle school, high school, college. And I get that, man. It's hard. And so how do you convince, at this point, I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to change what he's doing.
No.
And so it's got to be tough as a coach. And, Jeff has been on the other end of some phone calls when I was coaching rec basketball, man. And it's rec basketball. I mean, these kids are anywhere between 5 to 10 years old, just utterly frustrated with these kids and parents. And, man, your job is not an easy one, I guarantee you. So God bless you. That's a tough one.
Will you, finally, with Tracy here, will you tell him that Aaron Rodgers isn't the best thrower of the deep ball the Packers ever had? Will you tell him now that Lynn Dickey was better?
I grew up watching Lynn Dickey, man. Dickey and Randy Wright, man.
Well, I mean, just as you feel about Lynn Dickey, I feel about being a Cowboys fan. Danny White, I wanted so bad to be Danny White. I wanted to be a quarterback and a punter. And I was, and that guy, he's just one of those quarterbacks, man, that follows greatness, but didn't quite get to the greatness.
Right.
All right, back
watching
to
the catch with Dwight Clark, I cried like a baby.
Yeah, I knew he was going to get to that. I was going to save him from telling us that he cried like a baby. Let's get back to the recruiting. Any Southern Door kids you're watching? How many of those kids are you getting out to Stout?
Well, legally I can't say their name, but it's we got our eye on some Door County guys. I like to always go back there and see who can do what. But it's just the demographics of thing that schools are starting to. I don't want to say dry up, but I mean, the smaller schools some are going to 8-man now. There's more 8-man football than ever in Wisconsin. They're realigning high school conferences next year again because of it. It's just too bad. It's sad to see that, we're fighting to keep football alive a little bit.
So how far do you cast that net? You were talking about casting the net. How far do you cast it? And what's your job? I mean, being a D3 school, do you go out and see these guys? Do you, go talk to them yourself, or how do you do that?
Yeah, no question. I mean, it's getting them on the visits here, and then we go out to see them. So tomorrow night I'll be in a gym watching a kid play basketball. You either do home visits, go to their schools, go watch them do an event. You're just trying to get to know them and to see them in all facets and get to know their family and kind of see, like you said, about character. We got to try to do a good job of talking to a lot of people to get what kind of kid are we getting? You know what I mean? I know we can play football, but what kind of kid are we going to get? So, it's fun. It's a fun job. You get to meet a lot of people.
So when you're recruiting, there's a trend, and it's been like this the past, I don't know, maybe 10 years, with kids just focusing on one sport.
Yeah.
Are you more inclined to find the multi-sport athlete versus the kid that's already specialized at a young age?
We like them. We like them to be multi-sport just because we just want the whole athlete. But some kids think they know better and they want to do one sport. And I don't know. Here's a good example. I thought I was a basketball guy when I was young. I mean, the hell, it's too white guy I could barely touch the rim, right? So, it's one of those things where football is just a better avenue. But I didn't know that because my body didn't develop until late. And by the time I got to be a junior, senior, it's like, okay, I can actually grow up and hit somebody now. So,
yeah.
But I just think these kids just need to stick it out and to stay in there, do 3 sport, high school. What the hell else are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's high school. There ain't nothing to do and get involved and, have fun, keep you out of trouble. And it just, it's always comical. We have we have punt return. We're doing specialists before we start practice and the punter's kicking, and the punt returns are down there catching. I'll look at a kid like he catches it wrong. I'm like, you ever play baseball? Nope, never played. I'm like, no shit. No wonder why you can't catch it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just there's so much stuff that just translates, corners. You talk about, cornerback play last night. Corners, if you can find the good corners are usually really good basketball players because that's what they do. They shuffle, they guard guys.
Yeah.
You can just hand check in football.
Yeah.
So,
and it's all about moving your feet. And I remember, I would always tell my kids, if you turn your hips, you might as well get the butter because you're toast.
Right.
And it's like with a corner, got that poor corner for Ohio State. I don't know what got him, the turf monster or something, but that kid got all kind of discombobulated. Also talking about character, So, yes, you want to meet the parents, but have you ever gone and talked to a recruit, but you never got to talk to the recruit because the parents were interjecting constantly? Has that ever happened?
Oh yeah, that happens every year. Yeah, multiple times.
And I
Yeah,
think as a coach, you're like, okay, this kid can't talk for himself, and the parents are looking into this more than the kid is.
yeah.
That's a bad sign.
That's when you got to try to find a way to separate the parent and the kid and really just talk to the kid. So we'll see that more on when they come visit us here, or if you go into a home where, when you sit down in a meeting with them, you can see kind of what parents are heavily involved and what parents are just, it's his decision. He can talk for himself. And because when they get to us, I don't talk to parents anymore. I do, but not about problems. It's like your kid's 18 years old and they need to learn how to grow up and handle adversity and deal with their own problems, and we can figure it out together. We don't need mommy and daddy to help figure out that problem unless they need to be involved. We'll get them involved, but it's for what we do. We're dealing with an adult, man to man.
One thing I've noticed a couple of years ago, I went back to coaching for a little bit. What
do you do?
I did Little League, and it was a couple of years ago, right before COVID hit.
Good.
And it was 9, 10, 11-year-olds that didn't make, the majors. And which I enjoy because now I'm teaching the basics.
Yep.
And if we can get to the basics, we can get you to the next level. But I got to say, back when I coached even, your area, and then before that, when I was involved, with the, I can't even think of the Southern Door guys. Danny Nelson was one of them though. And I never had parents come up and question me back then. I don't know what it was. I don't know if they just believed in what I did or was afraid of me or whatever, but I never had anybody come up. And you come from an athletic family. I mean, your dad was a great ball player, your uncle. But they never, nobody's ever came up and said, well, you should be doing this. Today, when I did that a couple of years ago, it was changed. It was the parents were, and I always say this, they were living through their kids, and some of these people didn't even play ball, because I know who they were. And it was tough. It was tough to keep my cool first, because it seemed like it was so funny. And I tell this story only because you'll know, but I had one father was just on me. I mean, he wanted his son to pitch, and he wanted him to pitch, and he wanted him to pitch. And I said, at this level, I'd like to get the guy that maybe can't play in the infield or outfield and teach him how to pitch, at least get us through this. Because it was almost like being on a tee, basically. It's that next step. And he didn't like it. And then one day he came to me and he said, I was talking to somebody. He said, I didn't realize that you were the uncle to the twins. Yeah. And it was like completely different after he said that. It was like, I don't know if I was okay in his eyes after that or whatever, but I didn't go in and say, hey, I coached this, I coached that, whatever, but it changed. But then the moms, that didn't change. That didn't mean anything to them.
Well, you hitting on them didn't change.
You could hear them from the stands, and it's like, really, you turn around and just look. But do you find that today? I mean, you started down a while back when you started coaching. What do you think today's difference is in the players? Is it because the parents are trying to be more involved?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's I got a 11-year-old girl who I help out doing softball and basketball, with her teams. And I think today what's different is you look back. I'm trying to think when we were young, mom and dad would drop you off at the practice field and see you. They were gone. And they didn't care, you know what I mean? It was like, we'll show up for a game and clap our hands and fun stuff and go home. You might get a little snippet in the Door County Advocate, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And now it's like everything is social media blowing up, and I think that adds a lot of pressure to the parents, to the kids. Of look at what I'm doing, look at my kid, and I think parents want to see that, and I think it's putting more pressure on kids, and I don't think it's good. So I think that's why it's a little different nowadays. Why parents are so active, because it's a show off thing. It's look at what my kid's doing, look what I'm doing. And it really is. I mean, it doesn't take you 10 minutes to look on Facebook or Twitter to see it's a me world.
No. And watching parents, and you can tell, I know I've read and heard about a lot of coaches, not only do they find what the relationship is with the parent when they talk to them, but they also, coaches, looking at a prospective player, also look at their parents in the stands. And if you see a parent that's chirping about this and about that, it doesn't matter how great the kid is. You're like, wait, the parents are going to be way too involved. So that's another flag. And when our kids, my daughter, she plays D3 basketball her senior year, she's finishing up this year. But when we would coach her, when we get done with the game, we were one of those parents that we rehash the game. And then I started to realize that we had read some things that, like, you know what? No matter how old that kid is, the last thing they want to hear on that ride home is what they did in the game.
Yeah.
And parents, they just, in the ride home, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that. And that makes it not fun for the kid. And believe me, the kid knows that they should make their free throws and they should rebound.
Yeah,
Believe me, they know.
Yeah.
And so as the kids, both my son and daughter, as they got older, that's the last thing we didn't bring it up.
Yeah.
One of the things that we'd always say, hey, I love watching you play.
Yep.
And now that we're sitting in the stands, even in college, like I go to my daughter's games, there's still parents chirping at the college level.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, listen, if you're playing college basketball at any level or any college sport at any level, you've won. You're the smallest percentage of people that play the sport. Just enjoy it.
Right.
Like my daughter's team isn't that good. They've won, I think, 4 games, and they're not going to win their conference. And I'm not being negative. It's just they're undersized and they got low numbers. And where she goes to school, the recruiting is more academic based. They're not really that focused on the athletic side, but she's going to come out with a great education. That's the point.
Yeah. I mean, and that's why you coach Division III too, is the life lessons these guys are learning. It's just, you'll never get it anyplace else. I mean, all the stuff they're learning through football. I mean, it's not just football. I mean, there's so much that we're teaching these guys outside, and that's the fun part of the job, right? X's and O's. Everybody's good at X's and O's at any level. It's just if you have the Jimmies and the Joes, you have the good players, you're going to win the games. It's not too hard of an equation. But to really develop them into a man, that's what's fun.
Mm-hmm.
And
where are we going this year now? Recruiting all done, or are you still seeing people?
No. I wish it was. It never stops. No, it never stops. I mean, we're getting into technically the last signing date, if you will, is the first Wednesday in February. So January is an important month. You have some commits in December that they'll commit, and then now January is when it ramps up even more, and you'll get more kids making a decision where they go. And then basically we'll go a little bit more into February, and then come to the end of February, it's jumping right back into 2024s. And it just never stops. It just, the cycle just keeps going. So it's fun. I mean, it's sales, right? I told myself I never want to be a salesman, but here you go. I mean, that's what you're doing.
So Stout, looking for certain people right now what do you got? How many seniors did you lose off the team?
Well, I mean, this year was technically, I think we probably had about 18, 19. Wow. We had some that were, COVID screwed everything up, right? So we're still dealing with that with this class and the next class. But some guys came back for their 6th year to play. Some guys said, I'm done, right? I'm done. I'm not coming back. Use my last year of eligibility. So it's skewed a little bit. We had, what do we have? About around 10 guys who walked in graduation. I think it was 12 guys who walked in graduation this past December. We'll have more in May. But, it's a good crew.
Awesome.
Have fun season.
Now, I'm not going to – I already went longer than I thought I was going to go with you, but I got to ask you a little bit about the college game, the D1s from Saturday. A lot of people talking on Twitter. No, you shouldn't watch. You shouldn't be watching all that, but I watch all of it. But they're saying that Ryan Day should be fired at Ohio State. What are you thinking about that?
Hell no. He's a great coach. Like I said, there's so much parity right now. It's just it comes down to a couple of plays a game. I mean, it really does. And that's like our league too. Who can make those one? And I tell our players it all the time. Who can make those 1 to 3 plays a game is going to win you the game. Right. If we don't make them, we're going to lose. And there's games that we won at the last minute too, where we won a couple of games in the last minute. So I'm a little biased. I like Ohio State now because my mentor was Jim Knowles, who when I was a young GA at Western Michigan, he was the D coordinator and D line coach. So I got to know Jim Knowles real well. Now he's the coordinator there, and just a salt of the earth guy. I could call him about a question today, and he'd answer. And just a high character guy. So I hope that staff does well, and there's no way Day's getting fired. He's doing an awesome job.
Did you ever think that? Did you see that timeout by Kirby Smart though? That was probably
the play of the game.
That was interesting.
I thought that was the most heads up play by a coach in a long time.
And the assistant that was up there that saw that, that man got a raise.
Yep.
Because
usually what we have is, you see something that's different, you call rat, right? So a lot of teams will call rat, and it pulls them. It pulls out your block, and everybody just plays a punt save. That's what the time what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
When they fake the punt. So once somebody recognizes it, they yell rat, and then it just circulates throughout the whole team and the guys on the field, and that pulls you out, so you're ready for any type of fakes. Because, quite frankly, it's your ball. They're punting the ball to you. I mean, the last thing you want to do is lose a possession. So that was good. I mean, somebody saw something.
There was definitely some film study that went on, and I want to know who was the one to initiate that,
or it was really lucky. Or maybe they weren't aligned right, or they ended up with the wrong personnel out there too. I don't think we'll ever know.
No, we won't.
I mean, when that happened, I was like, because that's the game. Ohio State converts that fourth down, it's over.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then
huge.
Harbaugh go to Denver. Do you think he's leaving the college game?
I don't think so. I mean, so many guys have tried to go from the college game to the pro games and fail. I would, if I was him, I'd stay put, and he's got a good thing going.
I mean, he's earned the trust of Michigan, and for what it's worth, I like Harbaugh, and I like what he's doing at Michigan. I wanted them to make it to the championship, just because you want to show the progression. But what I do also appreciate with Michigan, they're definitely giving him time to build something. I mean, sometimes these guys, they 3 or 4 seasons, if they don't show anything, they're out, especially like a program in Michigan. But I think Harbaugh's done enough to keep Michigan relevant. But I do kind of root for them to get to that national championship. And I thought this was going to be the year. But TCU, holy crap, man. You want to talk about somebody coming out of nowhere. But then you're playing in the Big 12, and defense is optional in that conference.
Right.
And that game was crazy. But for a student body, I think 13,000 for them to be doing what they're doing, going to a national championship.
Yep.
Holy crap. Andy Dalton and LaDainian Tomlinson are celebrating right now because, they never had that shot. And, I'm glad for them, and I also feel bad for them. Do you think they can hang with Georgia?
We're going to find out. I mean, they're pretty gritty groups. It's fun to watch. So I don't know.
I mean, it's going to be strength versus
I think Georgia's going to win, but I think it's going to be a good game, hopefully.
TCU has a lot of speed yet, and they got a big offensive line. Whatever way you look at it, their offensive line is huge too.
Yeah.
And you think about what TCU's got going into it, they're basically playing with house money because they're like, no one thought we'd be here anyway. Exactly. And I think Georgia's a little stunned. They're like, holy crap, our calling card was defense, and we got smoked, and we made a count though. So it's going to be, man, the defense versus the offense as far as how that game's going to play out. So you think Georgia pulls it out?
If I was a betting man, yeah, I would think that Georgia would pull it out. But that's why you play the game, man. I just want to see a good game, to be honest with you, because I have no stake in either one of them. Mm-hmm. So I just want to see a game that goes right down the wire.
One last question about the D3 programs. Somebody out there listening, a kid, is the old saying that if you're good enough, the NFL will see you. Is that true in when they come around to D3 schools?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, if you're good enough, they'll find you wherever the heck you are. I mean, it's the NFL. They look underneath every little rock. They're looking at the rest of the world too, right? They got guys playing in NFL from Germany to all those different countries over there as well. But no, I just had a scout reach out to me this past week. So I sent them. We have a guy that's a pretty good player, and I sent him his information and said, hey, I don't know if he can play in the next level, but my job is to let you get him in front of you to see if you can decide that. So, there's no question. And every year we'll have a couple of guys from our league get an opportunity to showcase their talent at the next level.
And I think that's so interesting for people, for the kids that might watch this or wherever when you talk about that stuff, because I know all the kids, when you start, you want to play in the NFL or you want to play in the NBA or you want to play, you want to play in the major leagues. Well, I've always been a big believer that if you're good enough, they'll find you. And I think that's true.
No, here's what my pitch on that too is, say you got a good running back, but he's a third string guy at whatever, Georgia, TCU, wherever. God, all you need is film, right? I mean, you need to show off your talents, and you're not going to show anything sitting on the bench. So some of these guys that want to go higher level when they get recruited, it's like, hey, come down a level and be the man. If you're the man at the next level, they don't care what level you're the man at, as long as you're the man. But everybody wants to be the D1 or the scholarship.
Right.
It's like these kids, you just want to sometimes, coaching for 27 years in college, you just want to take them and shake them and say, wake up, and slap them up a little bit and say, I'm not bullshitting you. Just here's what you should be doing.
Well, I think that's one of the advantages and the good side of the transfer portal. And a story like Joe Burrow, sitting on the bench, goes to LSU, wins the national championship, and look what he's doing.
Yep.
But the other side of the NIL is, I'm taking my ball and going home. Like, coach doesn't like that. But, and the spirit of that was for when a coach recruits a kid and he comes in and then the coach is fired the next year. Well, that kid should have a right to either follow that coach or go somewhere else.
Yep.
And so, but like everything, we always find a loophole, and that's what's going on.
Oh, no question. No question.
You know how much I know you do, Coach, how much I look at the younger guys, seeing who can match up in the Packer uniform. And I got to tell everybody, I've been on this guy for over 2 years. Quentin Johnston from TCU would be a great bookend for Christian Watson. Great bookend. The guy's got size, got speed. I mean, some of these guys, I don't even know how they're running these 4.26, 4.2, 4.3 40s, but this guy from TCU is another one, 6'5", 6'4", 6'5", 220 pounds, running a 4.36. I mean, come on.
What you call a freak. Yeah, freak.
And there's still Terrell Owens thinking he can do it.
Right?
At 50. But, Coach Birmingham, you don't know how much this means to me, you coming on and talking about this. I think the young people that listen to this, it's important because I think, number one, that character issue is a big issue. And I think if you get good grades and you're really towing the line, I think that makes a difference when you guys go looking.
No question. No question. Hey, good seeing you too. I haven't seen you in a long time. So you get back to Sturgeon Bay to stop in. So, and Tracy, I'm sure Stone has told you all about my family tradition with the Birmingham Country Show. So, I didn't get many musical talents out of that thing, but I was going for a long time. But
hey, you never know, man. Just like in recruiting, we're always looking for somebody. So.
Yeah, right.
His coach's cousin, Donnie, is a drummer locally and still plays with a group here locally. And I think, Tracy, you actually went out one time and watched him with me, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was that group.
One of those references I always make when you have music and sports, the drummer and the bass player is like the offensive line. We don't do the pretty stuff, but we do the stuff that needs to make everybody else do well. So
no question. The
unsung heroes.
Right.
You have a great afternoon. And again, thanks for coming on, and go do some recruiting.
All right,
guys. Good luck on the
Appreciate
recruiting trail, and good luck next season.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Talk
man.
soon.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year to you guys.
Same. All right. Coach Clayton Birmingham, University of Wisconsin, stout, and come on to talk a little bit about what was, the recruiting. I always liked that recruiting process because I had a couple of friends, that did that, at the college level. And it's always interesting for me to listen to how they go into, like Jerry Faust, Coach Jerry Faust. You remember that name from Notre Dame?
Yeah.
When I had sat down with him numerous times to talk to him, and he talked about how, going to recruit like a Tim Brown, and all that. And it just amazes me how they can go in and pluck these guys from the inner city, and I know there's got to be, like you were saying, there's got to be some sort of, I promise you this, promise you that. And then when it gets there and then it's not promised, it's just got to be devastating for the recruit. But back then, those guys, they'd have to sit out a year or two before they moved on.
Oh yeah.
And, it's amazes me how because that's an art in itself. Like Coach said, it's sales. You're a sales guy now. You want to be in sports, but you're a sales guy because you got to sell your program to get these guys in there. it's amazing. It's something that that would be something that I'd like to do. As far as with the radio background, that's all you did was sell.
Well, yeah, and the fact that you're judging people and how are they going to be? There's so many factors that you have to look into. The parents, work ethic. Um, Gino Ariema would always talk about he'd talk about he didn't care how a kid played. He wanted to see how they were on the bench.
Right.
And how they would react in that respect. And there's just so many, and I find it interesting just with the little bit that I did with Cameron going to get recruited on some trips and stuff. It was fun and exciting. And now that we're on the other side of it, to talk to other people and these coaches and what they see in a kid and what's a turn off and what's a turn on and all this stuff and what they're looking for. And it's a dance, man. These kids do dumb stuff on social media or whatever. That's just as bad as an injury or worse.
Right.
Because people will move on from you.
Well,
you're kind of that one thing.
But you're kind of that parent that does sit there and yell at the coach and
all the time.
Because I've watched on TV, and when you send me that link, and the first voice I hear is you going, telling the coach to get his head out of his ass and all that kind of stuff.
Of course. Yeah.
So I mean, you got to know more than anybody, what that's like as far as,
Yeah, I love riding a coach and especially riding the refs. That's awesome. I mean,
and don't let he talked about, playing basketball and in other sports. Don't let him kid you there, Coach Birmingham. He was a pretty good athlete out of Door County. It was that little interaction that I had back when they were young. That was a good group of kids that we had, and it was a lot of fun because they were good ball players, good athletes. So, but it was great to have him on, and like I said, that school, Southern Door School, in Door County, it's amazing the kids that come out of there that play well, and good coaching, I guess maybe from the high school part, even the middle school, I guess would be some of that, I think. But I think a lot of it comes from the parents too. If they have parents that are very involved with athletics when they were growing up, it seems like those are the kids that I always wanted to coach because, they're pretty much, they know the basics now, just got to let them play.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's tough. I mean, parents want to be involved and you got to learn that, you got to learn that so many people are watching what you're doing. And if you're at, let's say, I don't know, rec ball game, chances are there's no college scouts there,
right?
And take it for what it is. But yeah, man, you really find out a lot about, that's just the dynamic of the way things are now. And I'm sure, they have been parents that get vocal, but with this age of social media and everyone has an opinion, it's easier for these people to just totally try to either ruin a kid's reputation or them playing by calling them out, or then you call out a coach and then God forbid, you're talking to your kid and talking bad about the coach to your kid. So that reinforces the lack of respect. And it's just, man, the best, if anyone's watching and they have young kids in any sport, just watch them play. Trust the coach. And if you want to coach, I'm sure you could sign up the next year. If you want to make a difference, sign up next year and let them enjoy it. It is a game, no matter what it is. They play a game.
I'm going to turn this in just for a second because I think there's a lot of similarities. Talk about you drumming and when you made your decision after college, either sit home, play in Louisiana, play in the that area, that region, or make that big step and move to Nashville. When did you realize that maybe you had the chops to leave Louisiana and say, you know what, I'm going to give this a shot? Because it's almost like going to play college ball. you know, when you decide to make that step. Now you're
Mhm.
trying to make it from college to the big leagues.
Yeah. The thing that reinforced my idea about making the move was when we would open up for different people in the local band that I was in, because you can feel as good as you want to about how you are in your pond. You know what I'm saying? Big fish, small pond, vice versa. But when people outside of the pond are saying, "Hey, man, you ever thought about making the move?" And then you start to mull that over, because if they didn't think you could do it, they wouldn't talk to you that way. They wouldn't ask you what your goals were. And so once I started to hear different guys saying, "Hey, man, you could probably do it up there." I'm like, all right, well, let's take the chance. If they say I can do it and they're in the game, why not? What do I have to lose? I can always go back to whatever it was if I didn't make it. But I felt confident enough that, hey, you know what? They think I have it. I'm going to go for it. It's like you see a kid that has aspirations to, you know, play college ball. He either knows what to do or doesn't. And you know if he has it. And then you have to have that conversation. If the kid has aspirations to do it, but you don't think he's that good, you got to be honest with him. And likewise, you know, I've had people come up to me about, "Hey, man, I want to do what you do." I'm thinking, "Oh, you do? Okay. Well, let's see what you got." And then you watch him play and you either say, "Yeah, man, I think this is for you," or, "No, you know what? Maybe you should just stay where you are." Because there's a lot of factors that go into that. Much like if you're trying to make it at the next level, there's probably a ton of kids that you've seen that are very talented, but the attitude was wrong. And they may be uber talented, but they don't have the right attitude. I've seen plenty of musicians like that. Great guys, great musicians, but they just didn't have the proper attitude. And that holds more people back than anything. Am I the best drummer that ever come out of South Louisiana? Hell no. But there was a lot of things. First of all, making the move, that shows, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. And then once you're there, you know, the right attitude, knowing that you can work with people and that people want to be around you and you don't have an ego. That was one of the biggest things that played into my all that I've been able to do. Yeah, of course, you get asked up every once in a while, but you have to put that ego aside. And I think that's one of the biggest things that affects people is their ego. They think they should be doing something more than they are.
Now, a lot of people think that when they move to Nashville, they're going to get that shot right away. Talk about
Of course.
when you left Louisiana. How long before you felt like, hey, I finally got a job where I think this artist is going to go somewhere where you felt maybe safe? Not everything's safe. We all know that.
Yeah.
But where did you finally get that? How many years did it take you to get to that point?
I started to realize after I played with Shane Miner and then moved on from there to your girlfriend, Cindy Thompson,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
moved on from there to Jamie O'Neill. It wasn't so much I latched on to someone that's going to be a star, but I started to tell myself I can still work with different people and grow my career and move on. And then even when I got with Blake, I didn't really think about him becoming a superstar. I never thought, "Oh man, Blake's going to make it." Or I never, it was one of those weird things. We were all in it together and we were fighting the same fight as far as trying to get Blake some consistent airplay and hits and stuff like that. But never once was I like, "Yeah, I don't know if Blake's going to work out. I'm going to look for something else." I was never really looking for something else. And then, of course, like 2010, when Blake really blows up, that era from that time from like 2010 to 2012, that's when I started to realize, holy crap, I've got one of the coolest gigs out there. And being from Louisiana, small town, my dream was just to go to Nashville to work and tour, not to be with a superstar. That wasn't my goal, but it turns out he turned into one. So I was like, well, that's pretty good. I'm glad I kept my mouth shut long enough to keep the gig.
So do you think it's a coincidence that his rise to fame, so to speak, happened right after Brussels and right
No.
after the Big Dog radio station? Is that one of the reasons why he was climbing?
No, nothing to do with that at all whatsoever.
And I think that's where it all started to climb.
No.
Was Brussels,
No.
Wisconsin, to The Voice because of the Big Dog radio station. I don't know. I think that's I think you got to give credit where credit is due, is when you think about that. Because not only did Blake Shelton, oh no, he went off. I think he turned me off.
I mean, that was the perfect time to end that. I think the timing was perfect.
So no, it's interesting because I bring that up because I know how hard you worked to get where you are today. But a lot of people think they can just pick up and go to Nashville and they're going to be a star. And if they've never been to Nashville, when anybody thinks that they can just pick up, you should go there for a week. Is that what I always say?
Yeah.
I've met a couple of people, and you've met them too, that have come from Wisconsin and said, "Oh, I'm going to move to Nashville. I'm going to, mix." And I always say, move there just go down there and visit for a week, because when you walk into the places that have music, you're going to find out there's a lot of great players.
Yeah.
A lot of great players.
There's a lot of great players, and they're not on the road for a reason. Or
Right.
there's a lot of great players that are aspiring to. So you're going to be competing against those people. Now, it may be a little different now because you can do your little videos in your little drum room and edit them perfectly and put it out there and get all the likes, and you think you're really, really good. You know what? That's great. But go down and play 3 or 4 hours in a club on Broadway and see if you got it. And
Also,
see if you'll get someone to call you for the next one. Because in your controlled environment, in your little drum studio, and you put your videos out, that's great. Cool.
and
But
also
go,
you
go and play a gig 3 or 4 hours with people you don't know and having them request stuff. And you got to try to fight your way through it.
And even when you make it to that level and you're playing with Blake Shelton on the stage, the big time stage, the headliner now, it's the same thing if stuff blows up and it's not going the way it's supposed to. I've been at some of them shows where that stuff goes. I've been at a show when the drummer was supposed to start with something else, but he didn't get the word that it was changed. And to keep your cool through that is also a test.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And you see that when you have these, let's say a guy wants to move to town and he's watching stuff. And let's say you're playing a gig and you react poorly to something, like maybe someone messed up the song or the singer messed up some lyrics. If you're going to have a poor attitude on Broadway, you're probably going to have a poor attitude when you get the gig. Because what's happening is, what I've learned in the 2.5 years since I started playing downtown again, your attitude there shouldn't be any different than your attitude on your real gig. A lot of times people look at those Broadway gigs, and I did it too. I looked down upon the people that played on Broadway. I'm like, oh, those guys aren't good enough. But now, with me doing it down there, there's some great players down there. And I'm looking at it from a totally above bird's eye perspective, because I'm not playing because I'm trying to get something else. I'm just literally enjoying playing. And I could have easily said when I play on Broadway, screw these guys. I don't care. I'm just here for the money. And you have a crappy attitude. Well, you might think when you have the other gig and you go on your big tour bus and do your big show that you won't have that attitude. It'll still prop up because it will come up because you already had it. So if you have a bad attitude, Broadway, doing that stuff, just because you have a road gig doesn't make that better. The ideal thing is to have the good attitude in both. And that's when you really realize if someone has it or not. If they have the chops, not necessarily the chops, but the right attitude for it.
What about the 14-year-old Tracy, now that he knows what it is at this age? What do you tell the 14-year-old Tracy that's sitting there saying, one day I'm gonna play on the big stage. I want to be a headliner. What do you tell that person that maybe will listen to this and is a musician?
To continue in pharmacy school and not become a musician, because you'll make more money. No, I would say, what's crazy? The only thing I would tell myself is to try to be have a better attitude with things because you can get down and you can be mad and get aggravated with things.
Like your
I
friend
would,
Jeff.
yeah, I would
Yeah.
say just try to be the light in every situation that you're in, no matter how bad or how good it is, and trust the process. Like, don't worry so much because, man, I second guessed myself a lot because you move here and you think you're going to get a gig as soon as you set foot on the on Broadway in Nashville, but it takes some time to do that. Just to be patient, keep working, try to learn as much as you can from other people and take advice. And I felt pretty good about that. Like when people would offer advice, I would take it because I trusted them because they had been there and they were doing it. But the thing that I probably would tell myself is to try to just be patient and make sure that no matter who's watching, try to not have your emotions take over because they say a true judge of character is what you do when no one's watching. I mean, it's easy to be in the public and do the right thing and be a great guy. But the way I would look at those things is if you're doing the Broadway gig or you're doing a gig with someone that's probably not going to make it, you still work and prepare just as hard for that gig as you would the one you're trying to get. So the preparation should always be the same, no matter what. Like, don't go into a gig with someone that's probably a bad singer. The music isn't that great. The songs are terrible. But does that mean you should not learn them and learn them to the best of your ability? No. You have to approach it's like practice, in any sport. If you practice poorly, you'll play poorly. And so the preparation part has to be the same no matter what. Don't underestimate a gig because that gig you underestimate and don't prepare for, there could be someone on that gig that won't recommend you for the next one. Because I've had that happen. I played in crappy situations, but because I did a good job, even though that band wasn't that great or the material wasn't that great, someone from that group recommended me for something else. So had I had a crappy attitude and not been prepared, that recommendation wouldn't have happened.
Kind of stole you answered one of the questions I had, but because I look on this video and look at your setting there where you're at in your little room, and a lot of people think that you get to that gig where you're set. You got Blake Shelton gig. I mean, you're playing headline. You're on TV every time we look. We're flying out to Hollywood for one song to go play one song out at the Voice. We're flying out there for one song. We made it. But I look in your room and I think you've always said this to me, how important it is. And I think it's important for a kid to know that drum set is still getting played at that house.
Oh, yeah, it is. Right there.
Right there. How important is that to practice your chops all the time?
I learned the hard way because honestly, about, I don't know, let's say 5, 6 years ago, I got complacent. I really started sniffing myself. I'm like, you know what? I'm good. Blake's at the top of his game. I can play his songs. You know what? I don't really need to play anymore. And boy, was that I got bitch slapped a couple years ago, realizing I'm not as good as I think I am. And the reason why I'm not that good is because I got complacent. So realizing the only way you get better is to play more. So I started playing more and then started taking the gigs downtown. And that's been the best thing I've done in my career to really get back down to basics. And you can't just say, you know what, I'm just going to turn it off and on. And I was kind of spoiled because I was only playing with Blake. I knew those 18 songs well. What else do I have to do? And I'm realizing how wrong I was.
Right.
Because now that I started playing again, it's been so great to dive back in to learning songs. Not only learning songs, but brushing up on songs because a lot of the stuff I do downtown is 90s country, which I love, which that is what propelled me to move to Nashville in the first place. So I'm playing stuff that I played 30 years ago, and it's awesome. I absolutely love it.
I think there's so much similarity into what you do and what an athlete does, and I mean, you should be out there talking to some of these kids at the at their days, just to tell them what practice means and where it gets you. And one last thing, why do you think? Because we've talked about this before, it seems like musicians, at least most of the ones that I've met through you, are huge football fans, baseball fans, basketball fans. But then you get the football guy that's really impressed with the drummer from Blake Shelton or the guitar player or Blake himself. Why do you think that because both are very tough things to get into?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think there's so much where each one has, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for there.
Well, there's a lot of mutual admiration between them, because I think and I hate using this, the grind is similar as far as trying to claw your way up to a spot where you want to be. And man, athletics, the thing about that is there's a win-loss record for athletics. Musicians, you might mess up a song, or maybe that song you thought was going to be a big hit isn't a big hit. And you have a little more grace in that. As far as you continue to not have hits, then you lose your record deal. Hey, it's like an athlete. You got a quarterback that throws interceptions all the time. Guess what? He loses his job. So there's a similarity in that. And a lot of guys, the ones that I've spoken with as far as liking the music, but then being an athlete, some of them played when they were younger, played a musical instrument like drums or whatever. And they look at the people on stage, and it's so funny because they disassociate the fact that they are on the stage, whether it's on a court or a football field or a baseball field. That's a stage. But they look at musicians and they think, wow, that looks so cool. But it's essentially the same. Like, I could never imagine trying to shoot free throws in an NBA arena and you're down by 2, trying to tie the game. What kind of pressure that is, But they could look at a musician and say, man, I don't know how you play in front of all those people. Like Corey Proctor said that one time when he was playing for the Cowboys. He said he just sat behind my drum kit. There wasn't even a crowd there. This was a sound check. And he was like, oh my God, I'm so nervous right now. I'm like, you're sitting on a drum set and it's sound check. No one's here. I was like, there's no way I could play in front of millions of people on TV and then, I don't know, 100,000 people live playing football, and you're criticized if you screw up. Like, I might mess up a Blake song, but guess what? I'm not going to be on ESPN, and I'm not going to have Stephen A. Smith ripping me a new one, So there's so much pressure. Just my friend Jeff.
Just your friend Jeff sitting off the side,
just shaking his head. Like,
I'll tell you what, if you ever get to Cadott again, I'm gonna ask Coach Birmingham to come out to the show, because I think he should watch it from the stage and just see what goes on, because it comes from a musical family. But I'm telling you right now, to see it from the stage with professionals, because that's what you guys are. You went from playing at 2:00 in the afternoon to headlining 10 o'clock at night, screwed up our whole after the show stuff completely. I mean, we can't even get together anymore after the shows.
Gotta go.
I've seen that process, and there's so much of that goes inside with the sports stuff, because getting to that stage is so important. Or like they say, just get into the tournament and anything can happen. Well, you get up there to that main stage and anything can happen. You can make the next steps. And I think there's a lot of similarities that somebody should see, and just to watch you guys from the stage and how you do things and how quick you guys can change from one thing to the next. I mean, which would take, and which would take a local band wherever you're from probably a good 2 minutes just to talk about it. Yeah. And you guys got to do it on the fly. I mean, if Blake changes a song, you guys got to do it on the fly.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to February. We're doing rehearsals and then our tour starts. And to me, that's like training camp and then preseason. And then we're going to play this, we're getting into the regular season when we start touring. And even then, it might take 2 or 3 shows to get it comfortable. Even though it's the same songs we played, there's a flow to every show, and it takes you a while. That's why, and I've told you this before, you might look at a schedule that, oh, you're only playing one gig this month. You must be great. No, that sucks, because you got to turn. Hopefully, everything you did from the previous gig gets flipped on right then for that one show. And much like if you lose a playoff game, you're done, and you stew over it until the next game. If we have a gig and we don't play another one for a month, for that whole month, I'm thinking, man, I wish I'd have done that better. And those happen more often than when you're playing them 3 nights in a row. Let's say we have a bad Friday. Well, you got 2 more times to redeem yourself, and hopefully you end that last show on a positive. And then you have that momentum into the next week. But man, it is so hard to turn it on and turn it off one gig and then not play for 2 weeks and then play one gig. I thought that would be cool. That was another thing that I kind of got pushed into the complacency, lulled, I should say, into the complacency, because that's what our schedule was. Like, we would tour our 6 weeks and then we would just do one-offs. And man, I hate to admit it, I wouldn't pick up a drumstick until the next gig.
Wow.
And it showed. And it started, it's like, if you don't practice, you're not going to be as good as you were the last time. You can't just show up. I'm sitting behind the drum set. That doesn't make me great. I still have to work on it.
So and then we're going to get to the Cowboys and Packers, but just to finish up here. So when you had this, where you're starting to get complacent and you thought you were starting to fill up with the ego and everything, that's about the same time that you were mean to me, wasn't it?
Had nothing to do with it. Nope.
I think it was about the same time. You're starting to feel yourself, and you thought, well, I'm going to give my buddy Jeff a talking to.
Hey, I was just kind of being like, we need to tell some of these kids, suck it up, Buttercup.
I'm just trying to point out, the rise to Blake Shelton came from Brussels, Wisconsin.
Nope.
And then, you being mean to me started when you were starting to feel your oats a little bit.
Unrelated. So yeah, the Packers are going to be dangerous. I'm not looking forward to that.
So the thing with the Packers, and I still question the defense, even though they had a great defensive show yesterday. I still question the defense, and I think they need to play defense like they did yesterday, where you're getting up on the receivers and you're starting to. I think by doing that, you're definitely pushing them into a different direction on their routes. And if you can get into somebody's head like they did with Jefferson, I mean, getting in his head probably helped more on the defensive side than what they were playing, because he was completely taken out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can physically take someone out of the game, but if you can mentally take them out of the game, you've already won.
And so I think that that's very important. The one thing that I've listened all morning to, everybody, listen to Coward telling me that Aaron Rodgers right now is the number 10th or 12th quarterback in the league, and first ballot Hall of Famer is not a 12th ranked quarterback in the league. But the one thing I got to tell everybody that's wondering what Aaron Rodgers, I think you still have to worry about Aaron Rodgers, because he still has that greatness, and he showed a little bit of that greatness in the Dallas game, where he was putting balls where a lot of people can't put them. And yesterday could have been a lot different if Watson caught a couple of balls, he wasn't overthrown. I mean, they could have put a 50 burger on the Vikings.
Yeah, and like Coach was saying, if you can score on special teams, that gives your offense time to get traction, and you put everyone in a great position. There was a definite momentum swing as that game went on, as far as when the Vikings didn't capitalize on the turnovers, done ski. I knew that game was over.
Yeah, when they missed from the 2-yard line, they didn't score.
Terrible.
And then having Savage intercept that ball, that was, I mean, Rodgers hadn't even touched the field yet, and it was 14-zip.
You think about a momentum swing. So the Vikings blocked the punt. If they go in and score, that's a different deal.
Right.
And then it swung when the defense made that stop. So you literally corrected yourself from the mistake you made on special teams You made it right by stopping them. And then all of a sudden you got the momentum back even more so because you sustained that blow and we know in the past that special teams has been a bugaboo for the Packers.
Right.
But hey, they sustained. Yeah.
The 105-yard return was interesting. Why this guy wasn't on special teams before Amari Rodgers, I'll never figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on there. But, coach's decision and all that kind of stuff. Did you see where the Vikings fans have come out and said that the Packers might have put water on the field at the 50-yard line, basically, and soaked it all up, and that's the reason why everybody was slipping. And they probably did it because there was no precipitation in this area since the 23rd of December, that they've actually come up with this conspiracy that they did something to soak the field up.
It wouldn't be the first time somebody from the Packers messed up a field in order to win a game, a la the Ice Bowl.
The heating systems broke.
Magically quit working.
They quit
on the
working.
Coldest day.
It was the 60s, Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
All right, get over it.
Mm-hmm.
But to have them come up with that and say that if anybody has watched Packer games for any amount of time, they got ripped off in the 90s when they played the Cowboys all the time with officiating. And now they come up with a field thing to say that the field was the reason and that the Packers did it. I mean, come on. It reminded me of a story of the late, great Al McGuire, who coached at Marquette University basketball. Digger Phelps, who coached at Notre Dame forever. And Digger Phelps told the story about Al McGuire going to Marquette to play at the Mecca. And he said it was about 4 hours before the game. And he walked out on the court, and 4 hours before the game, Coach McGuire was out there with one of the maintenance guy, and they were spraying water onto the nets. And he walked out to me and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Oh, it helps their life and blah, blah, blah." He had all these reasons why he was doing it. What would happen is that Notre Dame was a running team, They run. So by stiffening up the nets, it took time for the ball to come through. So he got the edge. And he said at that time, he'd never sit back again against an Al McGuire team because that guy was a guy that would cheat to win. And, it was something probably that the NCAA at that time never even looked at that he was doing. But
imagine what they're doing now.
Oh, my. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. But so the Minnesota Viking fans are upset. There was a couple of things from the game that I loved. Okay, number one was this, and
that was Alexander who,
the little, So I like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is number 55 for the Vikings used to be a Packer, and old Zadarius had nothing to say. He didn't even shake anybody's hand when it was all done.
It happens.
That was it. He was done. And, Bakhtiari came out and played well.
Mm-hmm.
He really played well. Something that I wasn't expecting. He was one-on-one most of the game, and they went other areas to help. But if they can give Rodgers time, I still say he can slice you up.
Of course.
And
I mean, by no means am I underestimating anything Aaron Rodgers or the Packers are going to do, which is utterly disappointing for me.
What about Brady? Are you afraid of him just in case the Cowboys?
Of course, because as of right now, we're going to play Brady, and he can still do it.
He's 45.
So, doesn't matter. He's still doing it. So
you have Micah Parsons.
Okay, that's cool. But the only, even if we were to somehow win the division and get the bye, our luck, we'd face Aaron Rodgers in Dallas.
He loves Dallas.
So, of course.
He does.
So, So we're done talking about the Cowboys.
So do you remember in 2016 when Aaron Rodgers went there and beat him?
Yeah.
With a throw that was just unbelievable.
Yeah. Yep.
Where did Aaron Rodgers play in his Super Bowl that he won?
Dallas. That's what I'm saying. He loves playing in Dallas.
Look at that. See?
I know. So everything's setting me up to have my heart ripped out by either Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady.
But you know that if you lose to Aaron Rodgers, your buddy Jeff would feel really well.
Of course.
So you got to be happy a little bit.
No.
Just like when I'll be happy when Dallas wins the Super Bowl.
Okay. I'll be happy if they get to the NFC Championship.
So anything surprise you over the weekend as far as games? I was surprised a little bit how Carolina played after beating Detroit the way they did.
Yeah. That was I thought that they would threaten possibly Brady. That'd be awesome if the Bucs had lost. But the thing that I was really felt dirty about, I had to root for the Saints.
That's like the Green Bay fans, rooting for who we had to the last 3 weeks. It's like, really, we gotta hope they win. I mean, we're hoping the Vikings, we're winning. So
yeah,
so that's pretty bad.
Next week you win, you're in. Straight
Detroit.
Up. And so I don't feel very good about Detroit's chances. So congratulations, Jeff. You got
and I'm a huge Dan Campbell fan. I just like the way he coaches. I like the way he talks.
But you're playing against the Packers, and it's Aaron Rodgers, and they're playing good ball. So
and who's doing?
You're going to the playoffs.
The other guy I like, and I've always did when he's playing in the NFL, Aaron Glenn. I think he's a great coach. He was a great player, and Detroit. As far as Detroit goes, you got to say Goff, like Darnold, they've looked good. I mean, Goff is playing at the rate he did when he went to the Super Bowl with LA. It might even be better.
But I don't trust him. Just like Cousins and all those other guys. Jared Goff is who he is and playing where he is for a reason. So that's why I don't have much stock in it.
So you're really down as far as that you're thinking you're going to have to play Brady or Rodgers, and that really bugs you out a little bit, huh?
Big time. What do I have to look forward to? So
did you see the catch Devontae Adams had yesterday?
Yeah, he's thinking, wow, Jared Stidham. I'll take him.
He wants to be traded to the Raiders. There had to be something about that. I don't know. But he wanted to go there to basically be with his friend.
Yep.
And now his
friend's gone.
Yeah. He can't.
Yeah.
His friend was asked to leave the locker room, not come around.
Yeah. That'll be interesting how that turns up.
I mean, I don't get how you can do that to a player that you've had around for 9 years.
Yeah.
And maybe it was his decision. People are saying that it was Carr's decision. Maybe it was. I don't know.
Yeah.
You still think on the AFC side, you still think in Kansas City, or do you think Buffalo can do it?
I think Buffalo can do it.
They got a big game tonight. They got to win tonight.
Yeah.
Against the Bears.
I think they can do it. That'll be a good game, though.
So do we know anything if the Packers-Lions got flexed or anything as of now?
I will know at the end of this game tonight. So
okay.
Yeah.
Because right now they're playing Sunday.
And there's some Saturday games too. So I don't even know when the Cowboys – I don't even know if they'll put that game on TV, Cowboys Commanders.
Well, I was going to show you this too. I don't know. Maybe you guys should be a little bit afraid now because the Commanders, if you didn't see, they have a new mascot.
Oh, boy.
There it is.
That's terrible.
Isn't that a great mascot?
That's one of the worst.
What are they going back to in the 80s when they had the hogs?
That doesn't even look like the hog. That's like some kind of piglet. Yeah.
That's the new mascot.
Terrible.
Right there.
Yeah.
Of the Washington Commanders.
Yep.
That team's got some problems.
Oh, yeah.
But we don't need Dallas to go into that game thinking, boy, we just got to get ready for the playoffs and overlook them, because then that's going to be bad too.
Yeah.
But I think Carson Wentz needs to sit.
Yeah.
I'm done with the Carson Wentz experience from Indianapolis to Washington now. I'm just done with him.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how a guy 6'6", 6'7" can be this bad in his decision making. I don't get it.
I mean, he is who he is for that reason. So
that's incredible. So, all right. Well, we will hope for a Cowboy win so that the Philadelphia Eagles will lose. The Cowboys get the division. We hope for a Packer win on my side because that gets them into the tournament. Once you're in the tournament, you just don't know.
That's why they're scary.
But I still think it's going to be Dallas against San Francisco in the championship game, and I think Dallas beats San Francisco.
We'll
I think
see.
somehow Dallas puts it together. I really do. I think
That's what I'm waiting to see. I haven't seen him do it yet.
T.Y. Hilton's a big pickup, I think.
I think
really
that was
do.
great. That was really good.
And I think that helps CD a lot, and I think it'll help Dak in the end. I mean, Dak's just got to, like you said, he's got to quit thinking that he can throw it through the, two players. He's just got to, play well.
Yeah, we'll see how things go next week, man. We'll have a lot to talk about next week.
We will. So, all right. Well, you have a good afternoon.
You also.
Happy
New Year.
Got to thank Coach Birmingham from University of Wisconsin Stout for coming on with us and talking about that program, and also like I said, that recruiting stuff always amazing. It's just always interesting to me.
Oh yeah,
how you go into somebody's home and talk to the kid, and then try to talk them into coming to your program, and it's just interesting. So, all right, we'll talk to you soon.
Happy New Year, buddy.
Answer your phone, all right?
I will.
Because
I was in church this morning.
It's kind of sad when I call and
I was in church. I'm not answering your phone at church.
The last time I talked to you, you talked to me for 2 minutes and said, "Hey, I gotta go,"
because I had stuff to do. Don't be hurt.
You had to go.
Fine.
You had to go. You
and
had to go rebound for your daughter.
I did exactly.
All right.
It's important.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye.